Alright. Alright guys, so this will be a bit of a dev blog, showing what I've been doing lately, showing off the weapons, the perks, how the weapons are set up. So we got it working. Now that I've got it working with the scimitar, now I have to take all that code, stick it under the weapon base template, modify it so that instead of just working with the scimitar, it works with every weapon. And that will basically drastically shorten the amount of time that we need to work on for specific weapons. So, I've gone through, I've shown some of the boxes here. Obviously you won't see this, but this is just dev code. Normally they would be not even showing up in the details, but I've activated them or shown them just so we can see what's going on. Thank you, Google. Now, obviously also too, FYI, when it comes to the weapon perks, we've added 15 or so, but at the end of the day, and look, there's a couple of different rarities and a couple of different things like blade.
More information about the weapon perks you're referring to.
Ah, hang on.
Specify the game or context and what exactly you want to know about the added value. 15.
Tell you what, they reckon your phones don't listen to you. Right, so these are the perks here. You know, we have a different selection. You know, obviously we have like some for the blade, pommel, grip, etc. Different rarities, and then obviously exclusions, icons, blah 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 blah. But do keep in mind that obviously at the end of the day, it's not fully flushed out with perks. We're probably going to have to make close to 200 or 300. So at the moment there's only 15. It's just to sort of show, which is why some of them might, for example here, this one says 0, right? It's because there's nothing that matches our criteria for that. So what happens? Every weapon has a default, and I can actually show you, has a default thing, right? Now when it comes to this, so this is the blueprint here. Yep. So when it comes to the weapon, obviously at the end of the day, I can close that one and go back to that. So the main item here is the blade. The blade sets the rarity for everything else. So with a sword, we'll make it as a blade. With an axe, we'll make it as the axe head. With for example, a broadsword, it's probably still going to be blade. With the crossbows and bows and stuff like that, it's probably going to be the actual shell, right? But there's always one thing that is the main parent company, and then under that, we then obviously go through and we have all the other items attached to it. It's not, I have to activate it, right? But so the blade is the parent, and then obviously with the sword we've got the guard, we've got the grip, and then we've got the pommel, and there is actually another item that will go in between the grip and the handle, and that's the flange, right? So when we go back to the dev map, you'll see here everything is empty, right? Because if we go to here, there's no static meshes set. This is just a random item. For example, if we go into here, we can actually go and we can delete that, and then we can just literally go back into current weapons. No, sorry, that's widgets. Props, weapons, earth, swords, scimitar, and then we can just literally drop this in here, and it basically goes through and generates, right? So the blade is the rarity, right? So this is a legendary scimitar. Now here's the thing: all of the items that are, and you can see them here, right? You see your mesh, that's your blade, and then you've got your widget and your interaction box, but still busy setting that up. You got your pommel, your funnel, your grip, and your guard, right? So the blade sets the rarity right here, which is set to legendary, and then everything else will have up to or including that level. So for example, you won't be able to put a epic, because we go up to epic, you won't be able to go through and put an epic handle on a legendary blade. You won't be able to go put through a legendary handle on a common blade, right? Now obviously in the game, hopefully in the future, we want to be able to make it so that you'll be able to go through and you'll be able to strip components down. You'll be able to break them up into individual components and keep them as individual, and then reassemble different swords if you want different things, right? That's all, later. So at the moment we're just talking about the perks and the weapon system. So if we go back to here, so let's go through and we're just going to drag this along and and okay, so the blade now, that's an epic, rare. I want to make it like a common. There we go, common. So because the blade is a common, everything else can only be a common, right? But if we go through and we make this so say that's a common, I'm trying to get like uncommon. There we go, uncommon. Now because the blade is uncommon, everything else can be common or uncommon, and that's it. So any of the perks that are, or the handles that are epics or legendaries don't fit, right? So if we were to go through and, for example, we make this one an epic sword, right? So it's spawned in a new sword and now it's epic. So here you can see it's got legendary, uncommon, and rare. So it's all randomized, right? It's pulled it from the data table. And it's also gone through and you can see here, it's also set perks. So this sword has, on the blade, has Blessing of the Forge, Glint of Damascus, and the Echo of Blade. So if we look up the Blessing of the Forge, so we go back out to here, Blessing of the Forge is there. It's a faint enchantment for the Scared Smiths, restored edge integrity over time. So that's what it does. The effective data is, it basically goes through, its damage modifier is 1, so it increases damage, and blah 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 blah. These are all just fillers, right? We haven't even decided which ones we're going to do yet, but these are just fillers. But you'll also notice that it also has Glint of Damascus. So if we go to the weapon perks here, where's Glint of Damascus? There it is there. Polished steel reflects light in a dazzling arc, intimidates foes and raises morale. So this one does a damage modifier of 2. Blah 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 blah. And obviously we can go through and we can actually add gameplay ability systems to these swords because of what you've got equipped and stuff, right? And then obviously the last one is the Echo of the Blade. Now if we go down here, for example, because it's a legendary and it's a funeral, we do have the Void of Harmony. Now the reason why there's only one is because that's all there is. It's maxed out. There's only one in there. So if there was another 3 or another 30 or 50, it would pick another 2 random ones and add it, right? It's only just showing the one because that's all there is. You go down here, you got the uncommon, which is the grip, for example. Now obviously the reason why this is only showing one is because it's uncommon, and then obviously when we go down here, we got the rare, for example, the scimitar, which is the pommel. It's only showing the one because obviously it's just maxing out the data table. Like I said, there's not a lot of data in here, so it's not actually pulling all of the perks because there's not enough in the data table. This is just a test. But like I say, yeah, so this is what will happen. Basically, when we go through and we spawn weapons into the world, they will be randomized, they will have perks and stuff like that. You will be able to go through, take it to a blacksmith. He will be able to break it down into components. Or if you want to switch out parts of your sword, he will be able to go through and do that. So for example, say you don't like the blade, maybe you go through and you get a blade that it's not epic, it's say for example it's rare, but you do find a epic blade in the world. You'll be able to take this sword to him, strip the components out, and then use the epic blade and then put the pommel, the fummel and everything else that you've got, the grip and everything else onto that epic blade. And then with the rare blade you can do whatever you want. You can keep it for another sword later, or if you break your epic sword and you want to go back and you need one in a hurry, you might be able to go back, take out the broken blade and put back in the rare, and as long as these other components are rare or less, they'll be able to go back into it as well. So it's a lot of customization, and keep in mind obviously this is just for the scimitar. We've got axes, we've got crossbows, we've got bows, we've got flintlock pistols. They all have their own components, for example, and different components too. It's a natural nightmare code. But like your flintlock pistol, for example, will have like a trigger mechanism, will have barrels and everything like that. You will be able to switch all that out, and as long as you're not doing anything that's above the rarity of that base component. So for flintlock pistols, we might make it probably the barrel. As long as you're not going through and maxing anything else out over that, whatever that max component is, you can add whatever you want, and you can customize it. And there'll be different styles too. You know, for example, like your scimitar handle some might have engravings, some might have, you know, engravings of dragons. Some might have engravements of wolves. So you can go through and you pick. But we can also go through and in here actually set the component, and that will lock the component for that sword. Now, obviously, you'll still be able to take it to a blacksmith, disassemble it. But like if we get swords like Excalibur and stuff like that, yes, Excalibur's in the game. If you go through and you find Excalibur, it won't be sort of randomized items on the components. Like the components will be already pre-picked, and you will be able to break it down, put those components into other swords and stuff like that if you really want. Though it's Excalibur, why would you? But yeah, and we might even go through and have it so that certain perks will work with other perks on the weapons. So like for example, if you have the complete Excalibur set, it might give you a buff, for example. Something like that might be also ideal as well. But yeah, this is what we've been working on lately. Now, like I say, what I need to do now is to go through to take all of this code, stick it into weapon base, and then modify it so that it will go through and automatically work out components and add components if they're not there, and it's going to be fun. It's I'm sensing there's going to be a lot of Panadol in my next night or two. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are in that comment section below. What are your thoughts on the system? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Give us feedback, let us know. And apart from that, enjoy, have a great night, and I'll see you soon, hopefully.